So hello again, and thanks for joining us this afternoon for today's community conversation, which we are hosting in honor of National Philanthropy Day. And today's conversation is about building a culture of philanthropy. And I am joined today by Celeste Albert, LCSW, who is the coordinator of team programming at Jewish Family and Children's Service of Greater Mercer County. And she's going to be speaking with us today about a program she runs entitled the Jewish Community Youth Foundation. And it's a program that I'm very happy that she's able to present about, and it's very near and dear to my heart. I've been a youth advisor in the program for Celeste for 14 or 15 years. So yep. It's a fabulous program, and I can't wait for you all to hear about it. Before we begin, just a couple of housekeeping notes. Please remember to keep yourself on mute to limit any background noise. We are recording this presentation for future use. It will be available on the NASW New Jersey YouTube page, and it's also live streaming to our Facebook page. Also, just a reminder that if you do unmute and come on to speak, please just present yourself professionally, as this is being recorded. And refrain from using any examples that may have to do with clients or anything that's confidential. So with that, I'm very happy to turn things over to Celeste. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Jeff. It is such a pleasure to be here. So I'm Celeste Albert. I'm coordinator of team programs at JFCS of Greater Mercer County. I first want to thank NASW New Jersey for this opportunity to talk about teens and philanthropy, and Jeff Feldman, who had mentioned earlier that we've worked together for close to 15 years, and it's a real honor and privilege to have him be part of this program that really provides lifelong leadership skills, and the impact of our teen philanthropists are just endless. So I'm so excited to talk about that today. And first, I want to wish you all a happy National Philanthropy Day. I do not know a better way to celebrate National Philanthropy Day than to talk about some amazing philanthropists. So you're probably thinking to yourselves, you know, there's so many famous and not so famous philanthropists that are giving away, you know, hundreds, thousands, millions, billions of dollars in the community. But the philanthropists that I'd like to talk about today are really under the age of 18. And through today's discussion, you'll learn a little bit about the work we do. And I can't wait to get started. So I'm going to be sharing my screen right now. JCYF, as we call the Jewish Community Youth Foundation, is a project of JFCS of Greater Mercer County and the Ricky and Andrew J. Schechtel Philanthropic Fund. So a little bit about where the program is housed. JFCS of Greater Mercer County is located in Princeton, New Jersey. And the social service agency provides services for people of all ages, backgrounds, and faiths. We've been in the community for over 80 years, and they've aimed to strengthen individuals and families by empowering people to care for themselves and others. And they provide help, hope, and healing through 4 core areas. So just a little background, you can see we have a very robust senior services department where we provide different services to older adult population. We also provide mental health support, whether it's individual, family, couples, and groups. We also have food distribution and pantry. What's very unique about our agency is not only do we have a brick and mortar pantry at our location in Princeton, we also have 2 mobile food pantries that go out multiple times a week and provide food and essentials to people all over the community where transportation might be a barrier. And then where I work is the Youth and Community Engagement Department, where this department has the Jewish Community Youth Foundation. I also coordinate a Jewish peer leadership program called Gesher LaKesher. And then we have a very robust volunteer program where we engage volunteers of all ages into our multifaceted agency. And so the mission of the Jewish Community Youth Foundation is that we are a learning community where values of tzedakah, which is acts of righteousness, are both taught and practiced by Jewish teens. It's a real thrill, and it's an exciting time for us as we are celebrating our 20th year anniversary. And how we teach and practice these acts of tzedakah is through the lessons that are learned through the program. You know, it's one thing to give. I always ask our audience, how many people's ever donated money before? And everybody, shoots their hand up. Yes, I have. And then I said, keep it up if you know exactly where the money goes to. And then everyone like slowly puts their hand down. And this is what we do in JCYF. We teach strategic philanthropy through different Jewish teachings, and we expose our students to different texts, different philanthropists, different concepts in Judaism to help guide their giving. Because it's one thing to say, I met an organization, they gave me this fancy bracelet and I wear it and it's cool, but it's another thing to kind of bring in some of the teachings into the philanthropic work. So JCYF started in 2003 with 14 participants. And anyone that's interested in doing this work, I strongly recommend building out a program versus, we are a 5-year program. We work with teens in grades 8 through 12. And the program started with one 8th grade class of 14 students. And then the next year, those 8th graders became 9th graders, and we took a new 8th grade class. And we did this progression for 5 years. And it was really helpful to kind of focus on a year, tweak and make the program better, and then roll it out in 5 years versus, okay, here's a 5-year program, and so forth. And what's remarkable is that these participants, these 14 students, 20 years later, have turned into 758 total students in the 20 years that have participated in this program. And in that time, students have donated 407 grants, totaling $967,043. So we are a few $1,000s away from our goal of giving $1 million back to different Jewish nonprofits. How the program works is we do charge a fee to participate, and part of the fee goes into the pooled funds. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a moment, but each cohort represents pooled funds, and so they have thousands of dollars that they give back into the community, and they can decide how they want to distribute those funds. So before I go any further, I want you to all think, what would you do if you had thousands of dollars to make your community a better place? It could be easy, but it's not so easy to decide. There's so many competing, I would say, needs that I think all have different, importance. Sometimes we focus on hunger, sometimes we focus on housing, and so forth. So feel free, if you'd like to put in the chat, what would you do if you had thousands of dollars to make your community a better place? And our students don't have it easy. They are presented with competing grant proposals, which we'll talk about in a moment, and they have a fixed fund that they have to figure out. How are we going to decide where that money is going to go to? And what's remarkable is when they go through this process, there's a lot of growth and learning, and they take this skill with them each year they're in the program. And what's neat is that, in 8th grade, this is the first time they go through it. It might be a little rough around the edges, but by the time these students get to the, I would say, 11th and 12th grade year, it's really running itself, and they know how it works and so forth. So a little bit about the history of Jewish teen philanthropy.
Sorry, Celeste, really quickly. Yes. We did get a couple of comments in the chat.
Wonderful. Stop me.
I've got a couple people have mentioned hunger and food insecurity, also homelessness, the environment, and also teen mental health and peer mental health counseling.
These are all great causes. And it's so hard when you have a fixed pot. And how are you going to distribute that? And, what we try to teach our teens is they've all probably had experience or volunteered, and they're familiar with maybe one of these causes. But through discussion, everybody comes to the table with different life experiences, and they really teach others about maybe some of the work they've done, some of the causes that are important to them, and so forth. And they really expose each other, as well as our curriculum, to different needs in the community to make it a better place. So thank you so much for everybody that participated in the chat. And, it's endless. And I have another activity towards the end of this where you will simulate some of the lessons learned in JCYF. So stay tuned. So a little bit about the history of teen philanthropy is that our founder did a lot of this work with her family. So what I mean by that is they would set funds aside and they would have their children kind of think about, how are we going to donate these funds? And as the children got older, they got to bring organizations and causes to the table. And as a family, they decided, how are we going to, as a family, distribute these funds? And what they did was they visited the organizations, talked to staff, and it really provided a very rich educational philanthropic experience for their family. Then the light bulb went off and they said, we need to do this on a bigger scale. So our founder came together with some other family philanthropists, and they created an advisory board. And what they did was they came up with this international network for Jewish teen philanthropy called honeycomb.org. What Honeycomb does is they provide curriculum, training tools, training resources for similar teen foundations throughout the United States and internationally to thrive. Because it's one thing to say, okay, here's the concept, run with it. It's another thing to say, well, here are some activities, here are some things you should think about. Let's network people that do this work to help you provide, a robust experience for your teen philanthropists. And that's where Honeycomb got created. And just a point of reference, Honeycomb is formerly known as the Jewish Teen Funders Network. So how our program works. I had mentioned students pay a fee to participate, and $120 of that fee goes into a pot. This year, we are running 6 cohorts. So each grade has its own cohort, and our 12th grade group is large enough that we have 2 cohorts. And what I mean by cohorts, it's about 20 students that come together, and they're their own foundation. And so each student represents $120. The $120 is matched by private donor, and then students have the ability to raise additional funds to boost their giving power in their each foundation. Our program meets 7 Sunday afternoons from September to February. And I had mentioned earlier, they learn about Jewish values around philanthropy. So, Maimonides was a big scholar, and this is something big that we teach with our 8th graders, and he created a hierarchy of giving. Is it better to maybe give unwillingly, or is it better to provide somebody with a job? So teach a person to fish, and they can provide their own sustenance. And so we really go through, that ladder to guide students' giving. And what's neat is that each year the teens are in their program, there's a different philanthropic theme they focus on, and we'll go over that in a moment. And what's great about teen philanthropy, I was just at a Honeycomb conference, and the presenter said that these teen philanthropy programs are real world programs. And what they mean by that is that it's actual dollars being used. It's not monopoly money. It's not, a simulation. This is a real program. But the program is meant for the real world, meaning that there is a whole database of Jewish nonprofits that we work with. And what's neat, and I always love when our students are like, I have a suggestion for a nonprofit, and then we vet those organizations. But these organizations are bringing the real world to our students by these grant proposals. And it's similar to the activity we did a little earlier in the beginning about what needs go in the theme and what are different projects your students can fund. So they review grant proposals, and just because a grant proposal is submitted does not mean that it is going to be brought to the next level, meaning the site visit. So the students actually debate and decide what organizations are we going to move on to the next round, meaning get to site visit, they get to interview the agency representatives. And what's my favorite part is, or agencies will come to me, they're like, Celeste, you've done this work for a while, and tell me what are teens into? Like, what should we pitch? And I say the same thing each time. I say, I never give advice, because there are proposals we'll get and I'll say, okay, this is nice. I'm not so sure the teens will be into it. And then we'll get proposals where, oh, this is so great. This is so innovative. This is so interesting. And I think we all know where this is going. The proposals, I'm like, students love, they bring that to the next level, to the next round. And then the proposals that I thought, oh, this is great, for whatever reason, they pass. And they can, because this is, again, teen led, and this is about the teens' different areas where they want to focus on. And what's great is they meet with the agency representatives. So it's one thing to read the grant proposals, but another thing to say, you wrote this, I'd like to explore more. I'm reading your budget. Can you explain this? And through these agency interviews, the teens are really getting different leadership skills that they probably didn't even know they had. And my favorite situation that happens, I get a call from the agency right after the site meeting. Your students ask such great questions, they stump the presenter. And then they'll email me 10 minutes afterwards, and they'll say, here's the answer. Please communicate that to the students, because they know that they take this very seriously. When we visit the agencies, our grants are only a few $1,000s. But one of my favorite stories is we went to an agency in New York, $20 million budget. And there's 5 people they list as, staff. And 5 minutes into the session walks the CFO, the chief financial officer, number 3 of the organization. And then the next year, 5 minutes into it, the CEO walks in, and that's really huge. And what's nice is that these agencies really treat our students like big donors, because they know the value of this. And it's just great to see our students interacting with the organization and so forth. And what's neat is that the organizations also learn about, how to pitch and about themselves. And if, let's say, they didn't come off the way they wanted to, they learn too about pitching and all of that. And then after the students go on the site meetings, they report back to their group. So each student goes to one of the 4. And so this is a very critical part of the program where they have to put a presentation together. They are the only exposure to that nonprofit to their group. But on the flip side, they're going to have to listen to 3 other presentations, because that's their only exposure to those nonprofits. So there's a lot of leadership skills involved in this. And then after that is something like what we like to call fight night, where the students really go head to head and are very passionate how the money should be distributed. And no one's got hurt, but these debates, and Jeff can tell you, get pretty well heated. And it's just great seeing these students feel passionate about something. And what's amazing are the conversations in the car afterwards. Oh, I can't get over this. Or, we'll have a very outgoing group, and there'll be that one student in the back who maybe is a little more reserved, raise their hand and say, I think we should do this. And then the group, it's like a quiet hush, and they're like, yes, they never thought of that. And it really sways, some of the thinking and the thought process and so forth. So it's just a really amazing experience that we teach our teens. And then at the end of the year, we have a check presentation ceremony where it's teen led. And what's nice is that since I mentioned we're an 8th through 12th grade program, we bring the whole program together, and the 8th graders present, and then the students get a lot taller as they progress. But it's nice to see how, the students can see there are 8th graders, and then the 8th graders see the 12th graders, the 12th graders see the 8th graders, and really the progression in the work that they've done. And then we have a Distinguished Alumni Award. So what's neat is each year we honor an alum who continues to make an impact in the community. And what I'm going to do now, if that's okay, I have a video of one of our previous Alumni Award winners that I would like to share with you, just so you can see the impact this program has had. And so it was a real honor and privilege to shoot these videos. This is actually one of my favorite days of the year. And this is Connor Dietrich. So we are gonna,
Hi, I'm Connor Dietrich from the JCYF class of 2017. I'm currently a junior at Boston University studying business, and I am honored to be this year's JCYF Distinguished Alumni Award winner. One of the key lessons that JCYF taught me is that of always moving forward. We're taught that Tikkun Olam, repairing the world, is never finished. It's something that we're always in pursuit of. And so when I got to Boston University, I look around at all the things I'm involved with, and I'm always asking, what have we done? How can we do it better? What's the next thing that we can be looking forward to? At Boston University, I'm the immediate past president of Boston University Hillel. I work at the Elie Wiesel Center for Jewish Studies, and I'm involved with the leadership of the Conservative Minyan. Of all these involvements, one thing that I really want to highlight is my work with the Mitzvot Initiative, an initiative by Hillel International to help boost civic engagement on all campuses, regardless of if the student is Jewish or not Jewish. One thing that we notice is that students far away from home, they don't vote, they don't have envelopes or stamps to vote. So one really small thing that we did was just hand out stamps and envelopes, and we helped over 600 students send their ballots home and be involved in their democratic system. One of the other ways I'm making a difference at Boston University is through my involvement in the Building Bridges student group. This is a group whose mission is to bring people of different faith traditions together and gain appreciative knowledge of one another. I noticed after the tragedies at Pittsburgh and Christchurch that people would come together and hold these beautiful vigils, but then the next day would go on as if nothing had ever happened. So I started this group to bring people together to try and build a truly robust interfaith dialogue at Boston University. By participating in JCYF, I know the importance of trying to understand someone else. At Boston University, there are 4,000 Jewish students, and you can argue 4,000 different types of Judaism. And so when I came in, I was kind of lost, not knowing exactly where to go. But I remember these lessons from JCYF, and I just started asking questions. And through that, I found a community where I feel that I can be inquisitive and explore and do all these things that really help fortify my Jewish identity. One of the best skills that I learned from JCYF is that of putting myself in someone else's shoes. BU has an incredibly diverse Jewish community, and because of that, sometimes there are tensions and frictions. But through asking others to put themselves in my shoes and putting myself in others' shoes, we've come to amazing solutions that have really beautified the community and made Boston University an amazing place to be Jewish. This year, I would like to donate my award in memory of Rabbi Feldman to the Conservative Yeshiva in Jerusalem. Rabbi Feldman was the person who inspired me to really go after Jewish learning and find a closer connection with my Jewish identity. And that's exactly what I found at the Conservative Yeshiva. To the current participants of JCYF, a message I want to leave you with is move. Stagnation helps no one. My hope for you is that you will constantly be moving forward with causes that are near and dear to you. And when you can't move forward with them anymore, that you can empower someone else to go just as far as you did. Judaism and social action are built on these successive generations of pushing just a little bit forward, people yearning to be part of something a little bit larger than themselves. Through JCYF, I learned about the true breadth of opportunities to help the Jewish community, from Jewish arts to Jewish involvement in ending food insecurity, to Jewish involvement in advocating for Israel, to Jewish involvement in helping people in Israel. Without JCYF, I never would have known about the myriad ways that I could be helping the Jewish community at every moment. I would like to thank the Jewish Community Youth Foundation, the Ricky and Andrew J. Schachtel Philanthropic Fund, Jewish Family and Children's Service of Greater Mercer County, and the Jewish Federation.
All right. So I just wanted to share with you, one of our students, and, there's so many Connors out there, but you don't have to be, a Connor to make a difference. And, we do hear about a lot of our students, but I'm sure there's a lot of students that are continuing this work and we just don't even know about it. So I wanted to just share with you one of our teens. And so
if I could hop in for one
Yeah,
second,
yeah.
Celeste, just the other thing that I would want to share about the experience that the students in the program get and their connection to the program. And one of my most inspiring and favorite things about the program is that we have seen at least 4, if not more, alumni of the program come back now to be advisors in the program. Which just shows how impactful it is that these students, when they return from college, some of them want to come back and teach the program to new students and continue to grow its influence. So I just wanted to bring that up too.
Thanks, Jeff. Yeah, it's just remarkable, what our students do and how they want to give back. And we've had students do what I do in other communities, and they've also worked in other teen philanthropy programs because this was such a part of them for 5 years that they wanted to continue the work in other states. All righty. So I had mentioned we're a 5-year program, and what I love about youth philanthropy, it's a choose your own adventure, meaning there are over 120 youth foundations in the United States, internationally in Israel, Australia, and Canada, at summer camps, at synagogues, day schools, and so forth. And we all have the same goal in the beginning. We want to give out grants. We have the same goal at the end. We award grants to different organizations, but that middle is different. And so what we do in our program is that we have a different philanthropic year the teams focus on each year. Some organizations might be a 1 or 2 year program, but the students dictate the philanthropic theme. But what we do here is that in that 8th grade year, we focus on local social service that's need-based. So some of the grants might focus on older adults, some might focus on basic needs, some might be youth, special needs, education, community. And then we take that philanthropic theme and we repeat that in the 9th grade, but the organizations have a national reach and they're based in New York City. And so it's like concentric circles. So we're expanding the different rings of giving. In 10th grade, we completely change it up and we focus on the importance of giving back to Jewish arts and culture and the museums. And it's a complete shift. But I have to say, I think it is maybe one of the memorable years, whether the teens love it or maybe this isn't their favorite year, but they have an opinion about it. And it makes them think about, sustaining Jewish culture and arts. In the 11th grade year, we focus on outreach and advocacy, and 12th grade is giving back to nonprofits in Israel. So even though students are in the program for 5 years, there's some aspects of the program which are similar, like the grant making, but there's some that are different. So in the 8th, 9th, and 10th grade year, the students visit one of the 4 organizations. And then the 11th and 12th grade year, they participate in something called speed philanthropy, very similar to speed dating, where they have to interface with all 4 organizations in a short amount of time. And our students report back to us that, that experience where they have to synthesize their thoughts in such a short time and they only have, 17 minutes really prepares them for other leadership opportunities. So I had mentioned that our students also fundraise. Fundraising provides a different skill set that we wanted our students to be exposed to. And so I had mentioned that we are a few $1,000s away from our $1 million in giving. And our hopes is that through our fundraising efforts, we will close the gap. And the goal of this is to provide leadership skills and to boost the giving impact and awareness about JCYF. And so in our program, it's really donors over dollars. We're not expecting the students to raise thousands and thousands of dollars on their own, but it's about the skills it takes to fundraise. So what is an elevator pitch? Or how do I deal with rejection if somebody says no? Or somebody wants to give, now what's the next step? Or even sending a thank you note, thank you for your support. And we teach those through our fun day. And if you're interested in learning more about what we do, you can see our fundraising page either through jfcsonline.org/JCYF donate, or you can text 345-345 to JCYF to 345-345. So I had mentioned earlier that we were going to simulate what the students learn. And so I would love for you all, we have a few moments in the chat to answer these questions. So, I never thought before in terms of philanthropy, these competing, I would say, needs and how I would get through that. And so the question I want to pose to you, if you had thousands of dollars to make community a better place, would you focus your efforts locally in your own community or internationally, maybe a community that doesn't have people that support that community? So feel free to think about that and put it in a chat. And there's no right or wrong, but when I thought about philanthropy, I never thought, like, do I help, the people in my community first, or if I'm passionate about a cause, but they're doing that work internationally, do I focus my efforts, internationally? So that's the first question. So feel free to take a moment to think about, how would I want to make an impact? Would it be locally or internationally? The next dilemma, I think, is hard. And this is, I talked about it a little earlier, Maimonides' ladder, where is it more important to deal with a situation now, or is it more important to educate others? So before we go on, I'm seeing we have a few answers in the chat. And just like our teens, you all are very similar in your way of thinking, in that, people don't have a black and white answer, and that people come to the table because with different viewpoints and backgrounds. So we have a few people that have answered the question, and we have somebody, we had 2 people that say they give local and 1 international. And I'm sure there's reasons for that. And like I said, there's no right or wrong, but the magic is when we ask the teens this, they come up with answers that just blow my mind. Like, I never thought about that, or, through some of their experience, it really opened their eyes to why they would give one way or the other. So, thank you so much for participating in that. Now for question number 2, would you give to basic needs? So maybe food, housing, clothing, or would you invest in education where maybe you don't address the needs immediately, but you are providing training to others to hopefully become, self-sustaining where they can fund their own basic needs. And this is hard. This is so hard because both competing, I would say, needs has advantages and disadvantages, but you think about, how do I want to direct my philanthropy? And so we have a few answers in the chat. Somebody talks about education, both talked about education, because there's so many organizations dedicating money to basic needs. So that's a great response. And the students, it's tough. They're both equally important without addressing how, yep. And these are some of the conversations that we have with our students. So these are all great points. And then the last question, this is definitely heated. And I never thought about this before, but it's really, interesting. You have $20 to give away. Do you give $1 to 20 recipients, or do you give $20 to one recipient? Do you want to make a big impact to maybe one person, or do you want to impact as many people as you can, but it's not as much? And so we get into debates about this, and we bring in texts, and there's texts to support one, and there's, Jewish texts to support the other. And it's just interesting, I think about that, especially in Giving Tuesday coming up. How do I want to make an impact? And it makes me think how I want to direct my funds. So, in the chat, I'll give people a few moments. We don't have anything up. I'm not going to say what I do because it's hard. And I'll be honest with you, I flip-flop. I'll sometimes want to make a big impact for one organization. And sometimes, I want to support everybody because, one cause is one cause more important than the other, especially when you have friends that have personal connections to the causes. So it's just interesting. So this is interesting. So Leah, I'm going to call you out. You threw another suggestion in the ring, which I love, is doing $5 to 4 people. And that is like kind of in the middle. And I love that. I have to say, we've done this activity a number of times and nobody's come up with that response. So thank you so much for offering that. And I'm going, Leah, you'll be, next time we do this, I'll have to present that. Yeah. How far can the smaller go to make a difference? That's true. But if a bunch of people do small, it makes a huge difference. So it could be that everybody wants to make a different impact, but not to that cause. So then what happens? So interesting points to think about.
Yeah, if I can interject again,
Yeah.
Celeste, this last question in particular is one that always plays out when the students have their allocation discussions. And generally what happens is, you'll have about 4 organizations that they've settled on competing for grants. And because our funds are limited, we also request that the organizations, the amount of money that each organization can get is capped. So the students may be looking at a total pot of whatever, $6,000 or $7,000 to split among 4 organizations. And there's always a contingency of the group that wants to give the maximum amount of money they can to one organization so that it can complete the mission that it was set forth to do with those grant funds, and others that want to split it up and say, well, let's give partial to every group so they can all achieve a little bit of this mission. And that's always one of the major conversations that goes down among the groups. And some years, through persuasiveness of discussion, the large donation gets made to 1 or to 2 groups, and other years smaller donations go to 4 or 5. So It really is interesting, and a lot of it is driven on how the students interpret the issues.
Yeah. And what I love about the program, there are 2 days of the year, I can guarantee you I have no idea how that'll go. And that is when they decide the proposals that will move to site visits and allocations. And just like Leah's very important point, I think people get very creative and you just never know what's going to happen. And I'm just blown away by people's passions and ways to make different scenarios work and so forth. And it just really enriches, the work that we do. So thank you for playing along. I really appreciate it. All right. So why do teens join? Teen Philanthropy provides a lot of leadership skills such as public speaking, consensus, active listening, presentation skills, working in groups. And, I took this for granted. Sometimes in school or other activities, they get this, but I really feel that Teen Philanthropy provides a unique skill set they don't get anywhere else. We talked about fundraising skills. It's a great resume builder. I get hit up for a lot of college recommendations. This is the activity that students want to highlight when applying for college. And I'm so honored. And I will never turn away a student who wants to highlight this because they put so much hard work and effort. And I'm happy to do that. We also have an Alumni Connect program. We have about 400 alumni that have graduated the program. And we track all of our alum. And so we've had some very wonderful success stories where it's like, I'm going to Michigan. Do you know anybody that's going to Michigan or Rutgers or different colleges? And we connect them and they meet. And it's just nice to have another resource, on that next level post this program. So what have you learned from being involved? These were just 3 quotes. We're constantly evaluating the program. So anybody that does this work, I highly recommend you evaluate the work you do. It's important to see how it comes off and ways to improve and so forth. And that there are many organizations in my area that someone my age can support. Because sometimes it's hard when you're an 8th grader, like, how can I make a difference? It's hard to do that. That they learn that this group of teens can make a difference in the community with needs, and that there are many people, when people get together, they can make a big difference. And it's really highlighted in the work that we do. So here are some additional resources. I mentioned we are faith-based. However, a lot of these resources provide philanthropy experienced that are not faith-based. And so if you are interested in this work in different settings, a lot of these websites have great educational materials and network. Youthgiving.org has a directory of different giving opportunities. So if you say I'm from New Jersey or I live in Michigan, it will tell you the different kind of teen philanthropy opportunities that are there. But if you are interested in creating your own giving opportunity, or how can I incorporate this in an after-school program or youth group or church or other faith-based organizations, I'm happy to talk to you. And please reach out to me because this work has been so enriching and so meaningful that anything that I can do to provide this experience to others, I'm happy to do that. So thank you so much. And, bring on the questions. I'd love to hear if anybody has any questions or comments or anything like that. So thank you so much.
Celeste, thank you so much for this great presentation. I know I'm biased, but I love this program and I love the work that you do. And, I think that this is such a great way to celebrate Philanthropy Day, to share this information with folks. If anybody has questions for Celeste, please feel free to put them in the chat, or if you'd like to raise your Zoom hand, you can unmute and speak to Celeste directly. And also, Celeste, will you be able to send me your slides so that I can share those?
Absolutely.
Those resources?
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. So after the program is over, I will upload the video recording to YouTube and send out the link to everyone that registered so that they can have access to the recording, and the slides will be in that presentation as well. So questions for Celeste? We still have 10 or 15 minutes before we wrap up.
I'm going to unmute and ask my question.
Hi,
So
Leah.
you said that in the beginning that the students have to pay a fee, and then $120 of that fee goes into the general pot. So is there a way that students who might not be able to afford the fee can still participate?
And yet, right as you asked that question, I did not mention that we do offer need-based scholarships. We do not turn anyone away due to the inability to pay. And, people take advantage of that, and we encourage that because, again, everybody should be able to do this work, whether you can afford or not.
Good question, Leah. While we're waiting for more questions, I don't know, Celeste, do you want to maybe share an organization or two that we've met with, not even necessarily donated to, but just like some of the sample organizations that each age group has had the opportunity to meet with?
I would love to share a site visit experience that I thought was very interesting. So, the students vote on the organizations they would like to visit. Some years, it can get very heated, and there's some that are like top contenders. Some can go either way. So there was an organization that I would say squeaked by. And again, it's not a knock on these programs and organizations. It's just about the teens' funding priorities. There were other projects they wanted to focus on. So we visited New York City, and the program that was pitched was called Back to School Store through the National Council of Jewish Women, New York. And they provide a back to school shopping experience for children in the New York City area. And they turn their nonprofit into like a department store, which is really cool. And then the kids go and they shop, and it's great. So I was taking 4 student leaders into New York. We spent an hour and 25 minutes on the van. We get there, and they're like, Celeste, like half of us didn't pick this organization. And, why are we funding rack rentals? Like, can't they just buy racks? This is silly. All of this money. I was like, look, we just spent all this time, the group wanted to learn more about it, and it's our duty that we need to visit and represent and, present on the agency. So the person that worked there, amazing. Actually, the executive director met with us, which was very nice. And then they're like, let's take a tour. Okay, great. And we're touring. And then one of the individuals said to me, Celeste, of course they have to rent racks. Where are they going to store all of this? I think there's this misconception that all of these nonprofits look like Google, and they have, cafeterias and workstations, and they can bounce on a ball as their chair and whatever. It's not like that. And so the site visit experience is very, I would say, important just to expose the teens to, what nonprofit work is like. And that's something I did not mention, that I remember, growing up, you had career day and you saw the firefighter and the nurse and the teacher and the lawyer, but never was there the nonprofit, professional. And this opportunity exposes our teens to what it's like to work for a nonprofit. And a number of our students go into fundraising and nonprofit work because of this. So it's just, and not only our students, but our staff too. We had an advisor who's now an executive director of an organization in Maryland, and really attributed this work to that experience. I think we had another hand.
Yeah, I see Jean has her hand up.
Yeah. This is a great presentation. I'm a clinical social worker, but in my spare time, I am also a youth group advisor for my synagogue. And we have such a hard time getting our youth group to engage in any type of philanthropic activities. We're running an activity this weekend and I can't get kids to come to it. How do you get kids out? Well, I mean, how are you advertising this? Because I think some of my teens would really benefit from learning about this level of it. I've just found that so many of the teens are so overscheduled, B, they don't have the larger worldview. I happen to come from a upper middle class, um, synagogue where we've got, families that have got these kids don't want for anything. And they just don't see that worldview. So how are you kind of pitching this to the teens? And what is also your service area? And my synagogue's in Monmouth County. Could my kids participate?
Absolutely. We are housed in different synagogues in Mercer, and anybody that's willing to travel, we can make that happen. So that's a great question about teens. And you're right. There's so many competing experiences that I think take our teens time. I gave a presentation. We do a parent orientation every year about the program, introducing them, like what's expected and so forth. What's different about this program is that, number one, it empowers teens to make choices. So it's not like, okay, today we're going to go to the food pantry and we're going to bag groceries. Like, teens can make choices about what they're doing and all of that. We provide community service hours for this because our students, in order to graduate high school, they need community service. And so, how does the teen want to represent themselves when they're applying for college? Like, what are you going to do to make you stand out? And what's interesting is we've had students talk about JCYF from everything from a sorority rush. This was the one thing that made this person stand out, to, I had a student wanting to be on the Model UN executive board. It was actually Connor, and he talked about this, about that. Also, too, we have an advisory board. So maybe if you have one or two teens that are really involved in this work, have them come up with the activity of giving back and so forth, so that there's some buy-in and they'll want to bring their friends. We also run JSERV, which is the International Day of Jewish Youth Service. And so we don't do a lot of hands-on community service activities, but that's one thing. So it's like a one-off. But also, this program shows that these students are committed to making their community a better place, and that they want to be a leader. They want to be different. They want to give back because it's important. And, sometimes it's hard to buy in, but if there's like groups of people that might want to do it, like bring a friend, let's, do this work together. It might encourage them. And so forth. But we can definitely talk offline, Jean. I'd love to learn a little bit more about the work you do and some things. Something that I also forgot to mention is that every time we meet, we collect toiletry items. And there's been events that I've seen, some social or just a meeting where we collect the toiletry items for a day of service, so that, oh yeah, I remember giving away the toothpaste, like what are we going to do with it? And then they come and they package and they learn about different other nonprofits that we don't necessarily donate to. Or if you have something going on, bring a can of food and we'll donate that. So there's ways of incorporating this into, let's say, maybe social events and so forth, or starting an event with the community service aspect, and then if they're into the social, do the social. That's a good question.
Thank you. I will be reaching out, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Great.
Thanks.
Thanks, Jean, for your question. That was great. Hopefully, hopefully the connection with Celeste maybe will spark something.
Yeah, definitely.
For questions, we have a few minutes left. If anybody else would like to either put something in the chat or unmute. I mean, I can just say a little bit about some of the organizations that I've been to. I've been an advisor for every grade except 8th. I'm 10th, 11th, 12th. Right now I'm with 2 groups. I'm with a 10th grade group and a 12th grade group. And I in particular really enjoy the 10th grade curriculum, which is the arts and culture curriculum, because it really challenges the students to think in new ways. They've spent 2 years really focused on direct giving and organizations that provide direct services. So trying to get them to shift their mindset and understand the importance of giving to arts and culture, and helping some of them think about the difference between giving to direct needs, which is so easy to see, versus the need to give to arts and culture, which is kind of another level of giving. I guess, you know, if you were kind of to look at it on a Maslow level, it's like a higher level on Maslow's hierarchy of needs. But some of the organizations that the students have visited in the arts and culture years is always fascinating to me. And I love, you know, we've gone to the Tenement Museum on the Lower East Side, and we've gone to the Holocaust Memorial, and the 92nd Street Y, and the Yiddish Folksbiene Theater to keep Yiddish alive. I mean, some of the programs that they get to see there are just really exciting programs. And one of the things that a lot of the funders have done over the years, when possible, is to tailor their ask to the students to programs that the students can most identify with. So a lot of the arts and culture programs in the museums will write grant proposals that have to do with bringing youth and teens into the museums to learn things, or they'll talk about apprenticeship programs and programs where teens can serve as docents in programs and provide information. And it's really it's just so fascinating and such a great experience.
One other point I wanted to make is that it really is a choose your own adventure, and that it's nice to give away like thousands of dollars, but you know, there's programs that give away, you know, maybe $100, or you know, you can scale this however you want, but I feel like the learning is the same. And there's ways to now with Zoom, if you don't have the means to travel into the city, you know, you can bring the site visit to you. And what was neat is during the pandemic, the presenter did like a side-by-side and gave us like a tour, so you could still see the space without being in the space. So there's ways to run something like this without, let's say, necessarily doing some of the components.
Thanks so much, Celeste. So it is just about 1, and I think in the interest of time and respecting everybody's calendars, we will wrap up. But Celeste, thank you so much for joining us today and for sharing about this amazing program. And, you know, just to summarize everything, like you just said, I really think, you know, it's not about ultimately the amount of money these teens are giving. It's building this culture of philanthropy and teaching them how to think about nonprofits and how to think about the needs of the communities, and then learning how to interact and give and support the needs of a community. So again, thank you for your time, Celeste, and thank you all for joining us. We have one more community conversation coming up before Thanksgiving. For anybody who's interested, on November 21st, we're joined by Hillary Weaver, who is a social worker at University of Buffalo and a member of Lakota tribe. And she's going to be discussing the contemporary Indigenous and Native American issues, and how social workers have been involved and can be involved in working with those populations. So that's next Monday, the 21st at noon. And maybe we'll see some of you there. Celeste, thanks again for joining.
Thank you.
I'll see you this weekend.
Yeah.
Weekend, yeah. And thanks all. We'll see you at our next community conversation. Bye-bye.
Thanks.